Hello YouTube and fellow sports cards collectors, this is Eric J and welcome to the channel. Today is another video where we show a complete set for a group of cards that I will not be putting together as a pack fresh set because the cost of getting packs are too high. But it is a set that one of the first sets that I collected as a teenager. But it's also had one of the cards that many of us as a kid of the 1980s chased in terms of getting its rookie card. And that is this card here, the Rickey Henderson 1980 Topps. So this card is, I guess, to have here in the soft sleeves, just kind of, so it's here to look at, and we'll set it off to the side while it's going by. There will be a space where this card should be, because I pulled it out for the purposes of just kind of having it there. Now, I was born in 1978, so 1979 would have been the first full season of baseball in my lifetime. Not that I remember any of it. My mother was a very large baseball fan, my father not so much. So my mother would tell me stories about many of the players that she enjoyed, and 1980 Topps. And this is a way for me to just start to enjoy some of those players that she'd talk about when I got old enough to start understanding baseball and who we were looking at. For me, the first season that I really remember well is 1985. I do remember bits and pieces of 1984. My mother was a big Cubs fan, and we got a chance to watch many games on WGN TV. So I do remember, like Sandberg, some of Sandberg's iconic home runs that season, and I do remember the flame out in the playoffs with Leon Durham not fielding a ball. But beyond some of those, highlight, lowlight type of plays, I don't really remember a ton. But later in the 80s, when I started going back and looking at some of these older cards, we got a chance to see some of these players that, in some cases were still going. Like Denny Martinez was still going in the late 90s, late 80s when I started putting these together. In other cases, you get Bruce Sutter, of course, is a Hall of Famer, and some of the highlights or lowlights. I might remember him as, or more in his Cardinal days, or even when he was at the Braves, really late in his career, rather than times at the Cubs. But we get a chance to thumb through a lot of these older players. I do also remember going to County Stadium and seeing Brewer games. My parents, when they decided to start taking my brother and I to baseball games in the 83, 84, 85 time frame, were equal opportunity. They brought us to County Stadium in Milwaukee to see the Brewers. They took us to Wrigley Field to see the Cubs, and they took us to Comiskey Park to see the White Sox. All three stadiums were about the same distance from where I lived at the time. So got a chance to see American League ball, National League ball. Carlton Fisk, I always associate him with the White Sox. It just has to do with my age. And, of course, some of the highlights of his Red Sox years are, iconic baseball moments, like the 75 World Series. But some of the Brewer players, like I remember watching Ogilvy play. Remember Robin Yount. Molitor, some of those guys playing as well. Pete Vukovich. He's also on the Brewers. Also did a little bit of acting with Major League, if you want to look that up. Gary Carter with the Expos, of course, is a Hall of Famer. I also noticed the team cards, which I didn't stop on the Royals one there, but I do enjoy the team cards. Here's the Astros one here. You know, it's a card that I don't know if 1980 was the last year for them. I don't know exactly when the last year of these types of cards were with Topps, but these are fun cards. As a kid, it's always fun seeing the entire team. At least I found it fun. Cecil Cooper was a fun player to watch. Thing that's also, I think, enjoyable about looking at a set, you know, here in 1980, we're talking about a set that's 39 years old at this point, is that Johnny Bench. I'm not quite old enough to really remember Johnny Bench. You know, I was alive when he was playing, but if I saw him in person, it was when I was very young and don't really remember him. But as I was saying, with these about 40-year-old sets, it's just the sheer number of players in this set that you'll end up finding these days are broadcasters or managers or other coaching staff members, you know, for you know, your team front office or whatnot. Just fun to look at and see some of those guys that you might hear their names or to just catch their names in you know, one of the game day booklets if you're at a ball game. And good number of them played. You know, Bochy's been a manager. It's Rich Gossage, Goose, no mustache in this one. The Yankees have always had some rules on facial hair. But yeah, this is a good look. Eddie Murray's a Hall of Famer. There's a lot of players in here that I just don't really know. But you know, if we stop and take a look at the backs of some of these cards, you get some very interesting information that you can potentially find about the player or others. We go back to the back of the Rickey Henderson, you'll see that we get some number of game highlights or potentially other trivia items that Topps like to put on their cards. So just reading the backs of a lot of these cards, you end up finding interesting information. Of course, when we're back in the 1980s, we don't have you know, baseballreference.com to go read up on players and all the various sites that share scouting information and all those things. So many of us are going to get our information either by listening to broadcasts. You know, Tim McCarver, broadcaster for a long time in the national stage, or we'd read the backs of cards just to read up when we could. And of course, we also had newspapers if we could get. You know, I was fortunate enough to be close enough to Chicago to get Chicago News, which, you know, allowed me to learn quite a bit about many of the White Sox and Cubs of the day, in addition to following the Brewers. But just a different way of getting our information. We also had TV shows that would show us, like This Week in Baseball, which was narrated by you know, various broadcasters, and you know, listening to Vin Scully and the like over the years. Of course, growing up in the 80s, it would have been Harry Carey in the Midwest. You know, started off with the Cardinals, ended up with the White Sox for a few years, and of course is probably most remembered for his Cubs years. Jim Rice, Hall of Famer, and then we get all the leaders cards for these sets. Carlton, Hall of Famer. Lou Piniella, remember him as a manager. So Winfield there. Alan Trammell also there. And Andre Dawson. So there are quite a few Hall of Famers that are represented in this set just based on the timing of, you know, when the 60s and 70s players were starting to well, the 60s players and the early 70s players were getting to the peaks and tail ends of their careers, plus the young guns from the late 70s really becoming, the new stars of the age. Dusty Baker, seeing him as a ball player, is the Robin Yount and a Mike Schmidt. Yount has an interesting career if you look at him, because he played about half his career at shortstop and half his career as a center fielder, and won an MVP at 2 different positions. Quite unique. 1982 and 1989 were the 2 years that he won. Wasn't on the All-Star team in 1989 either. Bochy. So yeah, the 1980 Cubs, some of the players that are shown on here are not some of the good number of those players aren't ones that just jump out at you. The team wasn't exactly great in 1980. So my mother always liked to point out, particularly when they started to get good at times. Of course, when they finally won the World Series, unfortunately, my mother had already passed by that point. She missed out on that. But I can say, even though he's a Brewers fan, and he's rooting for the Cubs that season. Morris is a Hall of Famer. And Cubs with a slightly different team photo than some of the other teams. Pete's one of those players that folks that like going after names tend to go after. Fergie and Ozzie are both Hall of Famers. Of course, this is before Ozzie was traded to the Cardinals. Bobby Bonds, his son, was quite a famous player. Molitor's Hall of Famer. Sutton, he ended up helping out the Brewers in '82, also Hall of Famer. George Brett, 1980 was one of the years that he won batting title. Blyleven with the Pirates. So we're going to be coming up to the blank space here pretty quick, where the Ricky Henderson otherwise would be sitting. Don't believe I put a placeholder card in there. Yeah, right there is where the Ricky Henderson would otherwise be. Seaver, Hall of Famer, Reds gear. My memories of Seaver are when he pitched with the White Sox a couple years later. Of course, that was very late in his career at that point. There's Pete Rose. Ken Griffey. He has a son that is quite well known as well. There are over 700 cards in this set. I don't remember exactly how many. 760-ish. Yeah, we'll get there. It's from the late 500s here. Willie Stargell, pretty late in his career. Stormin Gorman, fun player to watch. Struck out a lot, hit a lot of home runs. Certain things don't change over the years in baseball. We get frustrated with strikeouts, but we sure do enjoy them, particularly when our pitchers are getting them. And for the power hitters, we like them going up there swinging and hitting their home runs. And of course, they strike out quite a bit. A good number of them do. So I think those high strikeout, high home run guys will always have a place with a lot of us as fans. Joe Morgan, Raleigh Fingers, both Hall of Famers. They got the Future Stars cards. Enjoy these cards. Too bad they don't make as many of these days. You know, with the 3 players on them. Here are your young players that we all think are going to be good. You know, some of them pan out, some of them not so much. You know, some of them are productive players for a lot of years, you know, depending on their role. Like here, Jesse Orosco is a pretty effective bullpen arm for a lot of years. Rod Carew down there. Ed Farmer, broadcaster. Yaz, Hall of Famer. And the last page, we got up to 726 cards. So that's the 1980 Topps set. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like. Please leave comments. They're all appreciated. If you enjoy content of this type, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and check out more as it comes out. All is appreciated, and I enjoy reading the comments and seeing what folks have to say and what they like and don't like. In the meantime, I'll be looking to create some more videos in the near future and post them as we go. At the time that this set is shown, I am currently working for my regular series, a 1991 score, creating a set from Pack Fresh. So that is what I am currently working on beyond this. So as it is, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to talking to y'all in a future video. Bye now.